At a multi-story residential building in Seoul, a man slams his hand on the alarm to stop it from ringing. He sits up and glances at his daughter before moving to the kitchen to make breakfast. His daughter Unji gets dressed for her morning run and refuses to eat before leaving, so he packs a small portion for her to take later. She steps out soon after, and he watches her in silence, muttering to himself. The man is in his late 30s. His name on the national registration card is Kim Jin-taek. He works as the chief of the strategy group at Jiseong Group, a role displayed on his business card. He is the one who signs MOUs with the UK and Norway and achieves record-breaking performance in the second half of the year, as noted by the HR department. Kim Jin-taek continues to fight for survival in the harsh competition of society, protecting the professional profile he has built with effort. At the office, several coworkers gather in small groups, quietly discussing Kim Jin-taek as he prepares to leave work. They note how he has once again chosen to skip the company dinner, explaining his absence with the excuse of a personal matter. In reality, Jin-taek is not at a dinner table, but at the gym, steadily working through his exercise routine. While many professionals across the country follow the advice of best-selling books that stress networking as the true key to success, Jin-taek has chosen a different path. He sees people as numbers and places his focus only on those who rank high in value. By forming a team with such people, he avoids the complications of personal opinions, since managing human relationships has always been his weakness, a flaw that once held him back, even if only briefly. Yet the numbers on performance reports never lie, and they have become his shield. His steady achievements build a solid foundation, allowing him to lead a stable life that others cannot easily shake. However, this carefully balanced life begins to shift because of an unexpected call. After years of silence, his sister-in-law reaches out. She informs him that Unji has been accepted into Korea University, a school located close to his home. Though he acknowledges that she has simply reached the age to enter college, his sister-in-law places one request upon him, to have Unji stay under his care for a while. Soon after, the door of his apartment opens and Unji steps inside, noting the long time since they last met. Her presence stirs memories in him, pulling him back to the days of her childhood. He recalls when her mother explained that Jin-taek was not her father, but her uncle. The young Unji, however, insisted in her innocent way that her uncle was still her father. Her mother corrected her firmly, reminding her that she must not address him as such, for others might misunderstand. At that time, Jin-taek himself was asked what he thought, and he gave an awkward agreement, unable to respond with certainty. Now, with Unji standing before him as a grown young woman, the reality of her words lingers in his mind. What was once meant to be a simple arrangement of acting as her temporary guardian slowly grows heavier. Unji declares her stay under his roof, and in that moment, he understands that she now falls into his care, not as a passing responsibility, but as part of his life. The moment Unji's presence overlaps with the memory of her mother, Jin-taek feels unsettled. He leads her to the spare room and tells her to reach out if she needs anything. Yet, as he closes the door, regret presses on him. He had expected the mischievous girl from his memories, but instead, a quiet and reserved young woman of 20 has stepped into his life, and he does not know how to face her. At dinner, he notices her plate. She eats the meat but leaves the liver untouched. When he insists that she should not be picky and that the meal is balanced, she rejects his reasoning, stating she will manage her own diet. His face shows exhaustion as he realizes this distant and stubborn side of her lingers all day. Still, when the night comes, she quietly slips into his bed and falls asleep beside him. The act is ordinary to her but strange to him. For a man who has lived a disciplined, orderly, and refined life, sharing his bed with his niece unsettles him deeply, especially when her face mirrors her mother's. The resemblance makes the situation an unbearable weight. Meanwhile, Unji pushes forward with her own path. At the university track field, she runs with steady strides, her posture sharp and improving. The instructors take note, recognizing her as someone who lacks extraordinary talent, but compensates through practice, diligence, and sheer determination. To them, she is not a natural star, but a relentless worker. During her break, she receives a message from her uncle reminding her to contact him after training. True to his word, he waits nearby and drives her home. In the car, he brings up the subject of relationships, asking about a boyfriend. Her answer is direct. She has no time for such distractions, claiming it would interfere with her routine. Jin-taek listens silently, reflecting on her life. She always returns home at the same time, never once coming in late. She sticks firmly to her controlled diet, her training, and her schedule. Even by his strict standards, her discipline is flawless. He sees that her way of living mirrors his own in many ways, and though he considers it not necessarily a bad thing, he also knows she must carry unspoken ambitions, desires, and hopes that extend beyond the routine. After all, she is still young, and college is the time for dreams yet to be shaped. As they arrive at the entrance of the building, Jin-taek notices a small package placed on the ground. He bends to pick it up, confused since he cannot recall ordering anything. Before he can examine it closely, Unji suddenly rushes forward, reaching for the box with urgency. In her haste, the contents spill onto the floor. Jin-taek is caught off guard by what he sees and realizes it belongs to her. Unji, flustered and uneasy, gathers the items quickly, avoids his eyes, and dashes inside the apartment without explanation. Left standing at the doorway, Jin-taek notices a small note on the box explaining that the package had been opened by mistake. He feels speechless, unsettled by the discovery. Unji has always appeared as someone distant from such things, someone disciplined and detached from trivial interests, yet this glimpse of her contradicts that image. Later, he calls out to her for dinner, but she refuses. She claims she does not want to eat, even though training awaits her the next day. He tries to persuade her, offering to prepare something light, but she firmly rejects him, her tone sharper than usual. Despite her refusal, Jin-taek sets to work in the kitchen, preparing a meal with care. From the corner of the hallway, Unji quietly peeks, watching him move about. He remarks, without directly addressing her, that he made more than usual since she had skipped dinner the night before. He adds in a steady voice that she does not need to share everything with him, but she also does not need to carry everything alone. If she ever struggles, she should remember that she can ask for help, and he will do what he can. Unji does not answer immediately. Instead, she takes the meal in silence and runs off quickly, avoiding further words. But as the night deepens and the lights dim, she appears again at his door. Pushing it open slightly, she steps inside and stands at the edge of his room. In a small, hesitant voice, she asks if he is asleep. That morning, at Korea Sports University's track and field department, Unji changes into her uniform in the locker room while the other athletes chatter around her. Several of the girls complain loudly about their exhaustion, muttering about how relentless the coach has been during training. One of them turns to her friend and points out that she saw her running extra laps around the field, asking if she had gotten into trouble. The girl laughs sheepishly and admits that she was caught sneaking into a rice buffet the day before, and as punishment, she was ordered to run more. The first girl laughs again, teasing that she must have been thoroughly scolded, to which the other nods, saying she obeyed without complaint. The conversation is interrupted when another teammate bursts into the room, her voice filled with excitement as she announces that something amazing has happened. The two girls greet her, asking whether the delivery they were waiting for has arrived, but she waves it off, saying that can wait. Instead, she leans in and eagerly shares her gossip. Her name is Heeju, and she tells them she was doing her homework at the student council building the night before. While she was there, she discovered that the building is connected to the swimming pool, and late at night she thought she heard someone still training inside. Curious, she went to take a look. What she found instead shocked her, a couple inside the swimming pool area. As she narrates the story with playful exaggeration, she suddenly shifts her teasing toward Unji, who startles visibly, almost flinching at the unexpected attention. Heeju laughs at her reaction, claiming she cannot get over how easily Unji is unsettled, remarking that Unji seems uncomfortable with anything outside her narrow world of sports. As they leave the room together, another girl suggests that they should go to Yang one weekend, saying she heard it has become very popular lately. But Heeju shakes her head with a grin, remarking that Unji would never be interested in such things and cares only about athletics. Unji walks quietly, her thoughts drifting away from the chatter. She recalls how she has spent years working out with diligence, and before she realized it, people around her had already placed her into the image of an innocent, pure girl. In truth, she had little interest in such a reputation. She had even grown curious enough recently to buy something she normally would not, just so she could join in conversations like these. That thought brings her back to the package from the other night, and her stomach tightens with worry. She cannot stop wondering how she will face Jintae from now on. As the others laugh and talk beside her, Eunji considers whether she should ever pretend to her friends that she already knows about such things. Yet she can easily imagine the shock on their faces if she did. Her uncle's words echo faintly in her mind, his reminder that she does not need to keep everything bottled up, that she can rely on him if she needs to. But despite remembering his sincerity, she feels there are matters she cannot bring to him. Back in the present, Eunji stands quietly in the doorway of Jintae's room, watching him as he sleeps. She reminds herself that he was the one who told her to come to him if she was troubled, so her presence should not be wrong. Yet, doubt creeps in. The hour is late, and she had not expected him to already be asleep. Still, as she lingers there, she feels a fragile sense of comfort. The thought that she can lower her guard, even a little, and rely on him. But before she can settle into that warmth, Jintae suddenly shifts in his sleep, turning over. Startled, Eunji panics and rushes back to her room. She throws herself onto her bed, burying her face into the pillow, scolding herself silently and wondering if she has gone crazy. Meanwhile, inside his own room, Jintae sits upright in the dark, wide awake. A few days later, he is at work in the company, lost in thought. A voice suddenly calls out his name, pulling him back to reality. He realizes he is in the middle of a meeting and apologizes quickly, asking for the discussion point he has just missed. His colleagues continue, but his mind remains heavy. Later, with a canned drink in hand, Jintae sits in the office lounge when one of his subordinates approaches and asks if something is troubling him. He admits he has been sleep deprived. Inwardly, his thoughts circle around the same matter. Ever since the night he accidentally discovered the package, Eunji has been coming into his room almost every night. He never knows what to say or how to react, so he continues to feign sleep, hoping she will leave without expecting more. In search of some perspective, Jintae casually asks manager Jung about his daughter, wanting to know her age. Jung replies that she is in the 4th grade. Jintae then presses further, asking how he manages when his daughter insists on sleeping beside him. Jung answers with a weary smile, explaining that it can be annoying when she clings to him after work, but he tolerates it. He adds that if other children discover she still sleeps with her father at her age, she risks being teased at school. He admits that this is why he does not even hug her much anymore, because once she enters puberty, that stage will vanish entirely. Eunji has long passed puberty, and yet she presses into his life in a way that unsettles him. What others might call clingy from a child now feels far heavier, and he does not know how much longer he can brush it aside. When Jintae returns home that evening, he makes his way to his room with slow, heavy steps. Eunji peeks out from the hallway, her eyes following him quietly as he disappears behind the door. Inside, he collapses onto the bed, his body weighed down by fatigue. For a moment, he debates with himself whether he should finally put a stop to her nightly visits, but the exhaustion dulls his resolve. He waves the thought aside, convincing himself that he is simply too tired to deal with it tonight. Sometime later, his eyes flutter open. The dim glow of the room reveals Eunji once again at his side. He freezes, wondering at what point she slipped in without his notice. The realization unsettles him. He had been too drained to sense her presence. He forces himself to remain still, pretending to be asleep as he has done before. Yet this time, a question gnaws at him. He wonders if it is even right to continue ignoring her presence, to act as though he does not know. Late at night, Jintae sits alone in a small restaurant, nursing a drink while his thoughts weigh heavily on him. He tells himself that he should have endured longer, that he should have held it in until the end, yet the pressure inside him is building. As he lowers his glass, he notices a young woman drinking nearby, muttering to herself with unfocused eyes. Their hands accidentally reach for the same bottle at the same time, and for a moment, they lock gazes. It is Hiju. A memory stirs in him from earlier that day. When he had gone to pick up Eunji from campus, he had seen Hiju outside, speaking on the phone. She had been telling someone that she would call back once she finished working on her project with friends. As she passed him, she suddenly paused her call and pointed out that the area was non-smoking. Caught off guard, he had apologized and pocketed his cigarette, admitting that he had not realized. She had casually added that if he wanted to smoke, there was a spot behind the building he could use, before resuming her call and saying she would probably be free around 8. Back in the present, Hiju also recognizes him, her expression softening as she addresses him with a teasing nickname, the cigarette Ajusi. Her words stumble out in a drunken slur as she asks if men, when drunk, start to see even their family members as women. She explains that her boyfriend had done something like that, and now he is begging for forgiveness. With her eyes hazy, she presses him for an answer on what she should do. Jintae studies her, realizing she is completely drunk, and answers in a detached tone. He tells her that instead of chasing what is right or wrong, she should simply do what she wants. Truth, he reasons, does not matter much in such cases. If she wants to forgive him, then she should. If not, then she should leave him. As he speaks, he pours another drink, letting the alcohol dull his own thoughts. Hiju laughs bitterly at his response, questioning why he is making such a big deal out of something so obvious, and even teases that he must have never dated before. Jintae says nothing and eventually steps outside, cigarette in hand. The cool night air greets him, offering a momentary escape from the suffocation inside. Soon after, Hiju follows him out, calling to him with a drunken but sincere thank you for helping her clear her head. He replies briefly, urging her to head home since it is late. But she smirks, insisting she is not that young anymore, reminding him that she is already 20 years old. Her gaze lingers on him, steady and unflinching. He asks her what she is doing, and she responds without hesitation. She says she is following his own advice. She is going to do what she wants. With a mischievous confidence, she claims she has the right to be a little selfish. Deciding not to leave, she makes it clear that she wants to spend time with him. Jintae feels his resolve slipping. The alcohol clouds his head, loosening the discipline that usually governs his actions. With his guard lowered, he gives in, and the two of them end up spending the night together. Jintae wakes up suddenly and notices that she is already gone, as if the previous night never happened. His phone rings, and it is Unji. He tells her he is not home, saying he has some work to handle. Later, Jintae is in the house drinking a glass of water, thinking about what he did the night before. He sarcastically convinces himself that he is making great decisions. When he goes to open the door, he is stunned to find Hiju standing there. Hiju freezes in shock when she sees Jintae at the door, just as stunned as he is to see her there. Before either of them can react further, Unji arrives, calling out cheerfully. She refers to Hiju as Sola, and explains that she had been calling her from the ground floor, but was not heard. Unji then notices Jintae inside the house and is surprised to find him home. Jintae calmly explains that he has just returned. In the midst of this, Sola and Jintae exchange a quick, uneasy glance, both clearly unsettled by the unexpected encounter. Unji introduces Sola properly, prompting her to greet Jintae in a nervous and hesitant tone. Jintae responds just as awkwardly, his politeness edged with tension. Unji and Sola step into the house together, and Unji begins to explain that she was unable to find the exact item Sola had asked for, so she bought something else instead. Sola reassures her that it is fine. From the side, Jintae watches them silently, his mind turning. He thinks about the strange twist of fate, realizing that the woman he met only the night before is now standing in his home as his niece's friend. No matter how small the world may seem, he never expected such an overlap in their lives. Unji calls out to Jintae, saying she has a favor to ask. He assumes she might want him to give them space since she and Sola seem to be spending time together, but instead she reveals something entirely different. She explains that she has told Sola she lives with her father, and she now wants to call Jintae Dad in front of her friend. She asks if she can do that. The request stirs old memories in Jintae. 12 years earlier, when Unji was only 8 years old, his older brother passed away. From that time onward, Unji developed the habit of calling Jintae her father, a habit born from grief and the emptiness left behind by her loss. Despite her mature appearance, she is still just a young woman who has turned 20, and that wound from childhood has never truly healed. Jintae, understanding the weight behind her words, gently pats her on the head and tells her she may do as she wishes. Unji, embarrassed by his sudden tenderness, quickly protests, asking him not to tease her in such a way. The moment passes, and Sola changes the subject, asking Unji about her nutritionist's advice. Unji explains that she has been instructed to avoid salty and spicy foods for now, rather than indulging in occasional cheat days. Sola points out that since Unji is still in the recovery phase after her short-term training camp, she needs to pay attention to her diet. She reminds Yoonji to take antioxidants and asks if she has omega-3 supplements. Unji admits that she only has iron supplements, and Sola nods knowingly, saying she had already figured as much and prepared ingredients accordingly. She tells Unji to make sure to eat properly. From the living room, Jintaek observes the exchange silently. He wonders if Sola is working toward becoming a nutritionist, and notes how close the two must be for Sola to care for Unji in such detail. He decides not to bring up what happened the previous night, though he cannot help but feel he has been pushed into a tight and uncomfortable spot. When Unji asks if he knows where the tomato paste is, Jintaek offers to find it. He checks the cupboard and mentions that it is a little old, nearly at its expiration date, and asks if it will still be okay. Sola replies calmly that as long as it is unopened, it will be fine. Watching her, Jintaek begins to wonder if she is deliberately pretending that nothing ever happened, while he himself is the only one weighed down by the memory of it. He hands over the paste, but Sola struggles to open the lid. Jintaek takes it back, explaining that it has been in the fridge for a long time, which made the cover stick tightly. With a firm twist, he manages to open it and passes it to her. Sola thanks him politely. A little later, Sola turns her attention to Onji and asks what kind of person her father is. Onji describes him with a single word, condescending, and continues by saying he is rigid, narrow-minded, and often frustrating. She complains that he has no sense of humor, cannot even crack a simple dad joke, and behaves in an overly fatherly way by interfering in her diet, which she finds annoying. Sola, however, counters by saying that from everything she has heard, he seems to be an impressive person, both good-looking and in good shape. Meanwhile, Jintaek is at his desk, focused on his laptop. He works on a document, and when Sola approaches, he silently signals for her to keep quiet, since he is on a call. His voice is calm and professional as he speaks into the receiver, saying that he will organize everything and submit the report tomorrow so it can be reviewed by then. He adds that Assistant Manager Park will take charge of risk management. As Jintaek ends his call, he casually asks about Unji. Sola looks slightly startled by the sudden question, then quickly explains that Unji has gone to her room to sleep. She adds that their conversation must have gone on longer than expected, and since they also had a little alcohol, Unji probably grew tired. Jintaek accepts her explanation with a nod, saying nothing more, and turns his attention back to his work. For a moment, silence lingers between them, but then Sola steps forward and quietly locks the door behind her. She tells him that there is a reason she came to see him. Jintaek sets aside his work and, with a measured tone, asks for her number. He adds that if giving her phone number is too much, then even her messenger ID will do. Without hesitation, Sola reaches for his phone, saying she will give him her number directly. Jintaek watches her but then changes the subject, his words becoming heavier. He asks her how much it will be, saying they should settle what happened yesterday. He tells her to name her price, promising to send the money right away so that they can conclude it was nothing more than a mistake and put it behind them. Sola stops, her expression clouded with confusion, clearly not expecting such words. Seeing her reaction, Jintaek presses further, asking if that is not the reason she came looking for him. But Sola retorts sharply, asking what if she has no intention of settling things with money. Jintaek frowns, insisting that he is being serious, and urges her not to joke about such matters. Yet Sola holds her ground, her voice steady, though her eyes flicker with something unspoken. She insists that if what she wants is not money but something else entirely, then would he be willing to give it to her? Sola begins to tease Jintaek playfully, but he quickly draws a firm line, stating that anything resembling what happened the night before is completely off limits. She only smirks and pushes further, asking if she should go and tell Unji about last night. His expression hardens as he reminds her that she is Unji's friend, and if she says anything, it will not only make things uncomfortable for him, but also for her as well. Sola, however, refuses to back down. She retorts that it would not just be her at risk, but him as well. If Unji were to discover the truth about their relationship, the consequences for him would be far worse. She keeps teasing him, her words sharp but laced with a nervous edge. Jintaek studies her carefully, realizing that beneath her provocations there is a hint of fluster, perhaps even regret for what she did in the heat of the moment. Her bravado seems to mask a certain unease, and this recognition pushes him over the edge. He suddenly rises from his seat, deciding to show her the consequences of testing his patience. His abrupt movement startles Sola, who had not expected him to act so decisively. Embarrassed, she stammers, asking if he is really going to do this with Unji still in the house. She had been the one provoking him, but now that he responds, she looks caught off guard, her confidence cracking. From Jintek's perspective, it is clear. Sola might have acted boldly, pushing and teasing without restraint, but her reaction reveals her inexperience. She may put on a front of maturity, yet her behavior shows that she is still just a kid. With that in mind, Jintek decides that perhaps this is the right time to teach her a lesson. Sola quickly tries to stop him, claiming that Unji is calling her. Jintek, unfazed, simply tells her to answer it if that is the case. She picks up the call, her voice steady, though her eyes dart nervously. Unji asks why she is not in the room and where she has gone. Sola quickly improvises, saying she just stepped outside for a moment to get some fresh air. Unji sounds concerned, pointing out that it is already late at night and reminding her that this is her first time in the neighborhood. After the call ends, Sola lowers her voice and points out that they might get caught by Unji if they are not careful. The words sink into Jintek, making him pause. In that moment, he realizes just how close he came to making another mistake. His original intention had been simple, to scold this reckless girl for teasing an adult as if there would never be consequences. Yet, in reacting to her provocations, he almost allowed himself to cross a line again. Sola, however, does not seem shaken in the same way. Instead, she looks at him with a daring calmness and says that she can cooperate with him so that Unji never finds out. Them notices the phone ringing repeatedly. It is only when Unji's voice calls out from the hallway that they jolt back to their senses. She stands outside Jintek's locked door, saying she cannot open it. Jintek quickly responds, claiming that he is just resting inside and does not want to be disturbed. Unji explains that she is worried about her friend Sola, who stepped out a little while ago but has not returned and is not answering her calls. For a brief moment, tension rises, but then Unji reassures herself aloud, saying that Sola will probably be back soon, so she will just wait for her. She yawns as she admits she is too sleepy and might fall asleep before Sola returns. Jintek immediately offers to open the door for Sola when she comes back, telling Unji not to worry about it. Relieved, Unji thanks him softly and leaves the hallway, her footsteps fading as she retreats to her room. Inside, Sola and Jintek exchange a heavy glance, both aware of how dangerously close they came to being discovered. The air between them is thick with unease. Sula, realizing it is no longer safe to stay, quickly decides to take her leave. She slips out of the room, only to be caught off guard when Unji appears in the hallway at that very moment. Unji blinks in surprise, claiming she thought Sula had gone outside. Sula freezes, visibly startled, her composure cracking. Unji's eyes narrow in confusion as she asks why her friend is coming out of her dad's room instead. Sula nervously explains to Unji that she only went into Jintek's room because she thought he might need something. Unji frowns, pointing out that Sula had earlier said she stepped outside to get some air. Sula quickly adjusts her story, claiming she had just gotten back from stepping out. She adds that she was on her way to the convenience store but realized she forgot her card, so she turned back. The excuse is flimsy, but she delivers it with as much composure as she can manage. Unji lets the matter slide, distracted by her own discomfort. She says she can feel the edge of a hangover settling in and complains that she needs chocolate milk. Sola immediately offers to go and buy some for her, telling her to get some rest instead. But Unji insists that she wants to come along since she needs fresh air. Sola, unable to refuse, agrees, and the two head out together. The next morning, Jintek wakes up and checks his phone. Among the unread notifications is a message from Sola. She says she left without waking him since he was asleep. Jintek stares at the screen, his chest tightening with unease. He cannot stop the thought from rising. What exactly has he gotten himself into? As the day progresses, the situation grows even more exhausting. Sola begins sending him messages about nearly everything she does. Updates flood his phone while he is driving, at the gym, and even during work. She seems determined to keep a constant connection. Eventually, Jintek responds with irritation, telling her that he is busy. He reminds her that he did not give her his number so she could gossip with him and bluntly tells her to focus on her studies instead. But even as he presses send, he rubs at his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. The attempt to push her away through money had failed, and now this approach is failing too. He wonders what other option is left to finally fix the situation. By the time he finishes his work for the day, his thoughts revolve around the question of where he should ask her to meet so he can put an end to everything once and for all. Before he can act on that thought, however, he hears his name being called. The voice is all too familiar. He looks up in shock to see Sula running toward him, her face lighting up at the sight of him. Flustered, he calls out her name, unable to hide his surprise. When he asks how she managed to find him there, Sula replies with a simple explanation. She saw his business card that Unji had. Around them, his female coworkers take notice. They glance at Sola and whisper among themselves, wondering if she might be his girlfriend. Their expressions shift with curiosity and doubt, many of them remarking quietly that she looks far too young for that kind of relationship. Jin-tae, flustered by the attention of his coworkers, quickly tells Sola that they should leave the office before the gossip grows louder. Once they step out, Sola sits with him casually and takes a bite of the meal she ordered, remarking with a smile that it is delicious. Jintae, however, is in no mood for light talk. He asks her directly what she is doing there. Sola replies simply that she only had one lecture today, as if her presence is nothing unusual. But Jintae presses, telling her that is not what he meant, and she wonders aloud if he dislikes that kind of thing. The comparison irritates him, and he responds sharply, asking if she wants to play that game. He repeats that what happened between them was a mistake, nothing more, and that they had both been drunk. To this, Sola calmly retorts that she had been completely sober, leaving the implication that only he had blurred judgment. Jintae insists again that he had not been in his right mind. Her tone shifts then, and she asks why it cannot work between them. She questions if it is the age gap, his social status, or the fact that she is his daughter's friend. Jintae does not hesitate in his answer. He says it is all of those reasons combined. Sola only shakes her head, saying those are nothing but lame little reasons that should be set aside, if only for a moment. Jintae stays firm, telling her bluntly that he has no intention of seeing her again. But her reply comes quickly, almost disarmingly honest. She admits that she simply likes being with him, which is why she wants to keep seeing him, even if only for a little while. Her words stun him into silence, catching him off guard. Recovering, he tells her once more not to come to his workplace. But instead of responding with annoyance, she simply asks him to buy her dessert, her persistence as unwavering as ever. That evening, Jintae returns home, his mind weighed down by everything she said. He recalls Sola's words about her boyfriend having cheated on her and wonders if all of this is her way of getting back at him. Yet, through his reflection, one thing becomes clear. Sola has no intention of telling Unji about what happened between them. That knowledge gives him a small measure of relief. He reasons that if she is so determined, then perhaps going along with her, within limits, might not be such a terrible idea. Against his own better judgment, he admits silently that it could even be a refreshing change of pace in his life. Later that night, after he drifts into sleep, he feels a sudden shift in the bed. Stirring awake, he sees Unji slipping under the blanket beside him. Surprised, he asks what she is doing. She startles at his voice. He switches on the light and looks back at her as she hides her face in the pillow. He knows she has been sneaking into his room, but believes she must be going through something difficult, so he allows it. She feels guilty when he points out that her recent actions are hard to accept, and she apologizes. He explained does not want them to misunderstand each other, and that her behavior, especially when she calls him father while doing such things, is not normal. He refuses to let it continue. She looks sad, apologizes again, and leaves the room. Later, Jintae sits in the living room watching TV. He thinks about how, after that day, Unji never comes into his room again. When she returns home, she says she has already eaten and goes straight to her room. Jintae notices the time and realizes she now comes home later than before and no longer visits his room at all. At a company dinner in a restaurant, Jintae drinks with his coworkers. He convinces himself that this distance is for the best. Meeting Sola makes him feel like he is losing control, but thinking about Unji makes him uneasy. He slams his cup down and pours another drink, telling himself that ending things before they become dangerous is the right choice. His coworkers notice he is drinking too quickly. One comments on it, and another asks if something is wrong, but Jintaek brushes it off, saying nothing is the matter. The female coworker suddenly comments on Jintaek's behavior, saying that he is drinking like Deputy Park after a breakup. Deputy Park, who is sitting nearby, laughs awkwardly, but then turns serious as he asks Jintaek if he got into a fight with his girlfriend. The female coworker looks surprised at this suggestion, her eyes widening with curiosity. Deputy Park goes on to explain that there has been a rumor around the office, a rumor that Jintaek's girlfriend actually showed up at the workplace. At this, Jintaek frowns and scolds Deputy Park sharply, telling him that instead of wasting time spreading foolish stories, he should focus on improving his own work performance. Embarrassed, Deputy Park quickly apologizes and lowers his head. Jintaek then clarifies to everyone that the person who came to the office was not a girlfriend, but his niece. The explanation quiets the table, though a few coworkers exchange glances that suggest they are not entirely convinced. Nahyun, sitting close to him, eventually breaks the silence and asks where he is going when he gets up from his seat. Jintaek tells her plainly that he is going to the restroom. As he makes his way through the restaurant toward the restroom, he suddenly finds himself face to face with a woman who stops him in his tracks. It is Sola. Her expression shows clear surprise, as if she did not expect to see him here at all, and Jintaek is equally stunned, caught off guard by her sudden appearance. She explains quickly that she spotted him from across the room and had a feeling it might be him, and now she is sure. With a slightly hurt tone, she asks why he has been ignoring her messages. Still unsettled, Jintaek blurts out whether she has been following him, but Sola shakes her head and says that their department dinner is also being held in the same restaurant tonight. She insists that it is nothing more than coincidence. With a low voice, he tells her that they should talk another time and quickly steps into the restroom. To his surprise, however, the door opens again behind him and Sola enters as well. Shocked, he asks what she is doing there, only for her to calmly reply that she is also heading to the restroom, as if nothing unusual is happening. A brief memory unfolds before the present moment. At her own company dinner earlier that evening, Sula sits at the table scrolling through her phone while her colleagues laugh and talk among themselves. The man seated beside her leans closer, suggesting that the two of them should visit a new place together sometime soon. With a polite smile, she declines, explaining that she is buried under assignments and too busy to make plans. Even as she gives her excuse, her attention drifts across the room, and that is when her eyes catch sight of Jintaek. The sight of him erases all thoughts of the conversation beside her, and without hesitation, she rises to her feet, moving toward him, bringing everything back to the present, where their paths collide. Inside the restroom, Jintaek stiffens at her presence and demands to know why she followed him in. Sola admits softly that she was happy to see him and could not resist, but Jintaek counters with frustration, pointing out the danger of being caught together, especially here and especially alone in the men's restroom. Sola answers with a faint, mischievous smile, reminding him that they only need to be more careful than the last time they were seen. His patience frays, and he tells her firmly that he is leaving first and that she should wait until later to step out. Before he can move, however, footsteps echo into the restroom. Startled, Sola reacts quickly, tugging on his arm and pulling him with her into a stall. The two press against the narrow walls as the sound of laughter drifts in. To Jintaek's irritation, it is not just anyone, it is another couple who slip inside, their voices playful and hushed. The situation forces him to whisper a warning to Sula, telling her to stay completely silent until the others leave. The air inside the cramped stall grows heavy. Sula leans closer, her movements slow, claiming she feels frightened, though the spark in her eyes tells a different story. Jintaek tries to keep her still, whispering for her not to move, but she ignores his restraint. She murmurs that she is not feeling well, blaming the alcohol, her breath brushing against him as she closes the space between them. When the couple finally leave the restroom, the silence that follows feels heavy. Sola checks her phone and finds a message from her friends saying they are looking for her. She glances at Jintaek and tells him she has to go, then slips out, leaving him standing there in quiet turmoil. Later that evening, Jintek sits back at his table with his colleagues, his expression tense as he slams his cup down in frustration. The thought pounds in his head. He let it happen again, even though he could have stopped it so easily. Deputy Park, noticing his mood, laughs awkwardly and comments that today feels like an emotional roller coaster. Jintek brushes him off and asks about Nahyun, only to hear from Deputy Park that she stepped out to the convenience store to buy a hangover remedy. Apparently, Nahyun had mentioned being worried about him, saying that if he kept drinking like this, he might make a serious mistake. He asks Deputy Park to pass him a glass of water. He raises the glass to his lips, ready to drink, but suddenly his eyes catch a familiar figure waving from across the room. It is Sula. The shock of seeing her there makes him choke, and he sprays the water out in surprise. Almost immediately, his phone buzzes with a message. It is from Sula. She complains that the man sitting next to her keeps trying to talk to her, even though she has made it clear she wants distance. Jintek frowns and replies curtly that she should handle it herself, reminding her that he is at his own company dinner. But Sola continues, threatening that if he keeps ignoring her, she will walk straight over to his table. She does not stop texting, sending more messages insisting that he should take her home, saying she will wait for him outside in front of the bar. Jintek feels cornered. He knows he cannot risk running into his team at the entrance with her waiting there. Left with no choice, he tells his colleagues that something urgent has come up and he needs to leave. To soften the departure, he puts his card down on the table and tells them to order some treats for the second round of drinks. The announcement excites Deputy Park, who grins and acknowledges the gesture. Outside, Sola waits under the glow of the streetlights. When Jintek approaches, she teases him with a sly smile, saying that he actually came to pick her up. He shoots back that she practically forced him into it, and that what she did amounts to blackmail. Sola only laughs and insists that it is not blackmail, because if he had not come, she would have just gone home alone. Jintek feels like he's being dragged along like a child, helpless against her persistence. With a sigh, he takes off his coat and drapes it over her shoulders, reminding her that when drinking outside, she should wear something warm, otherwise she will lose body heat and catch a cold. He tells her firmly that they should leave before anyone notices them together. Sola links her arm through his with playful stubbornness, refusing to let go, even when he tells her to walk a little further away from him. As they move down the street side by side, another figure returns to the bar. Nahyun comes back from the convenience store, holding the drink she bought, only to hear that Jintek already left. Stepping outside, she happens to catch sight of him walking away in the distance. At first, it seems like nothing unusual, until she notices the woman at his side. Recognition flickers across her face. She realizes that it is the same woman Jintek once introduced at the office as his niece. On the walk back, Sola thanks Jintaek lightly for taking her home, her tone almost playful, as though she has won a small victory. He sighs and tells her to return his coat, reminding her that his work badge is tucked inside and he will need it for the office tomorrow. Sola only smiles, saying that she intended to borrow it only until she reached her room. Jintaek blinks in surprise, momentarily thrown off, as she continues without pause, explaining that because she lives alone, her apartment is cold at night. She adds with a teasing lilt that he will understand once he steps inside. He stands there for a moment, silently taking in her words. In his mind, the excuses are transparent. He knows perfectly well that the weather is not cold tonight, and he also knows he can easily get a temporary badge if needed. Her reasoning is flimsy, a cheap trick to draw him further in, and he is fully aware of it. Rationally, he has every reason to turn on his heel and leave, to end the night there and walk away before it leads to anything else. And yet, despite all that, his steps betray him. Almost against his better judgment, he follows her through the doorway and into her room. They end up spending the night together, losing track of time in the comfort of each other's company. Laughter softens the air, and for a while, it feels as if the tension that usually surrounds them does not exist. When things finally quiet down, Jintaek takes a moment to look around her apartment more carefully. The place is spacious and refined, with elegant details that hint at wealth. He mutters to himself that it looks expensive, and in his thoughts, he reasons that Sula must have grown up with no shortage of anything. A subtle unease passes through him as he wonders if this very contrast, the difference between her world and his own, is part of what makes her draw him in even more. Sula notices his shift in demeanor and tilts her head in surprise. But before he can say anything more, Sula smiles slyly and declares that it is her turn now. They begin to play again, and Sula teases him almost immediately, asking if he is already tired, saying that it all feels too easy. Jintek's team. Jintek narrows his eyes, seeing how arrogant she looks while she keeps on prodding at him, her voice dripping with playful confidence. She claims that she has finally found his weakness, smirking as though she has won. But her boldness doesn't last long. Not long after, she suddenly collapses against him with a sigh, saying that she feels tired and cannot move anymore. Jintek, unimpressed, decides to turn the tables and get back at her. His response makes Sola pout, her lips forming a small sulk as she protests that he always does whatever he wants. She insists that she only wanted a short break, but he never lets her off that easily. Meanwhile, at home, Unji sits with her phone in hand, staring at the unanswered messages she has already sent to Jintek. She types another, asking if he is still at the company dinner and why he hasn't replied yet. After hitting send, she lets out a small scoff, almost as if she already knows she will not receive an immediate answer. Just then, her phone rings. It is her mother. Unji answers, and when her mother asks where she is, she replies that she is at home. Her mother's next question is about Jintek. Unji explains that he is out at a work dinner tonight. There is a brief pause before her mother gently asks whether the two of them are getting along. The question catches Unji off guard, and she hesitates, searching for the right words before finally giving a careful response. Her mother continues, sounding slightly apologetic, saying she has been too busy lately to visit and wonders aloud if perhaps it might have been better if Unji had gotten a room of her own instead of staying where she is. Concern sharpens her tone as she asks if everything is truly all right. Unji forces a small smile into her voice and insists that everything is fine. Jintek checks his phone and sees a new message from Unji saying that she will be late today. He acknowledges it with a brief reply, but as he scrolls up through their chat history, a strange feeling settles over him. The messages between them look almost like those exchanged between strangers, short, polite, and void of warmth. Before he can linger on the thought, his phone buzzes again. This time, it is Sola, sending multiple texts in quick succession. She complains about a report she forgot to finish, fussing in her usual way, and Jintaek exhales slowly, feeling the weight of being pulled into her rhythm once again. As he sets his phone aside, Nahyun approaches him. She greets him with a gentle smile and remarks that he looked unwell yesterday. She explains that she even went out to buy something for him, but by the time she returned, he was already gone. She offers him the drink now, and he takes it, thanking her with genuine gratitude. Nahyun's expression softens, but then her eyes shift slightly as though she is testing the waters. She recalls what she saw yesterday and asks carefully if the young woman she spotted with him was really his niece. The question catches Jintaek so off guard that he nearly chokes, spitting the drink out in shock. His voice stammers as he asks if she truly saw her. Nahyun nods calmly, explaining that it was only by chance. She adds that the woman seemed a little more expressive than usual, probably because of drinking, but she dismisses it as nothing unusual. As they walk back together, Jintaek presses further, asking what the big deal is. Nahyun answers with an easy smile, saying that the woman, Sola, seemed affectionate, and that it was nice to see. Her comment only deepens his unease, and he asks if it still doesn't look a bit strange, pointing out that to others, the scene could easily be misunderstood. Nahyun, however, reassures him that it is far better than appearing cold and distant, especially since Sola is family. She then suggests that they keep the matter between themselves, saying there is no need to stir up unnecessary trouble in the team. Jintae quickly agrees, knowing exactly how Deputy Park would react. He would probably demand to be introduced to his niece, turning the whole thing into a joke at his expense. Jintae admits aloud that it is a relief that Nayeon was the one who saw her. Nayeon's voice softens as she replies that she would be happy to listen to concerns like this anytime. Jintae gives a small nod, managing a faint smile, and tells her that he will keep that in mind. On his way home, Jintae finds his thoughts circling back to the earlier conversation with Nayeon. She had been speaking about Sola, But strangely, Unji is the one who lingers in his mind. He reminds himself that at this point, he is the only family Unji can truly rely on. That responsibility weighs heavily on him, a reminder that he must act with more caution. As her guardian, he cannot afford careless mistakes. He stops at an intersection as the traffic light shifts to red. The idle moment makes him restless, and he finds himself reflecting on how he has been handling things. He knows he should have been more careful, more present. His gaze drifts to the side toward a bus stop nearby, where a young man is standing with a girl who looks unsteady on her feet. She sways slightly, tipsy and careless in front of strangers. Jintae shakes his head, thinking that kids these days have no fear, no sense of how exposed they are when drunk in public. But then his breath catches, his expression freezing as he recognizes the young woman's face. It is Unji. The man beside her, glancing at his phone, and says that it has already been 30 minutes since they arrived, yet no bus has come. He mutters that the buses must have stopped running for the night. Unji, slurring her words, insists that she is still going home, but the man insists that he will make sure she gets back safely. Her purse suddenly begins to buzz with the sound of her phone ringing. She clumsily reaches for it, but the man tells her to ignore it and tries to guide her away. Before he can, a shadow looms over them. Jintae steps forward, his glare sharp enough to make the young man flinch. Startled, the man demands to know who he is. Jintae's voice cuts back coldly, throwing the same question at him. Unji lifts her heavy head at the sound of his voice. Her eyes widen slightly as recognition dawns, and she murmurs the word, "Dad." The man stiffens in shock, realization striking him, before he stumbles back in embarrassment and runs off without another word. Jintae steadies Unji, her weight heavy against his arm, and guides her to his car. He says nothing as he helps her inside, only tightening his grip as if silently willing her not to slip further away from him. Together, they head home. At the house, Unji lies sprawled on the couch, her breathing steady, but her eyes half shut in feigned sleep. Jintae watches her for a moment before saying flatly that he knows she is pretending. He demands to know what she has been up to, his eyes narrowing as he takes in her outfit. The way she dressed tonight leaves little to the imagination. His frustration boils over as he scolds her, saying he cannot stay calm after seeing her like that, asking what on earth she was thinking. Unji's eyes flash open at his words, her expression sharp with defiance. She snaps back that he is not even her real dad, so why does he care? His voice rises again, firm and unyielding, but she cuts across him, her own voice trembling as she pleads for him to stop yelling. Jintae pulls at his hair in frustration, saying he won't nag her about drinking or staying out late, but she needs to be more careful. She doesn't understand how dangerous guys can be. Unji shoots back, asking how she's supposed to know that. With a heavy sigh, he tells her that if the reason she drank was just curiosity about guys, then he'll explain it to her. At that, she perks up, eyes widening with interest. For a fleeting moment, an ominous feeling crosses his mind, but he shakes it off, convincing himself that no matter what happens, he can handle it. He reasons that she's just a curious kid. If he explains a little, she'll back off on her own. But the thought shatters the moment he meets Unji's gaze. Her eyes glint with determination, sharp and unwavering, as if she refuses to let this chance slip away. Unji pouts, reminding Jintae that he promised to explain everything, insisting that he can't suddenly get mad at her like he did the last time. Jintae feels a bad premonition settle in his chest, a warning that nothing good will come out of indulging her curiosity. Still, he reluctantly decides to go along with it, so long as she doesn't push things past the line he has drawn in his mind. Watching the way she acts, half childish and half determined, he tries to reason with her. He tells her that his role is to protect her, not to encourage this reckless curiosity. But Unji only waves it off, replying with a mischievous little grin that she won't tell her mother anything, and besides, she'll stop pestering him with these requests once she eventually gets a boyfriend. That answer leaves Jintae cornered. He doesn't want to give in, yet he doesn't want to push her away either, not when she looks at him with such stubborn expectation. Against his better judgment, he finds himself conceding, if only to keep her trust. But as Unji presses forward with her request, a faint blush creeps onto her face. She feels the weight of Jintae's stare on her, every second drawing out her embarrassment even more. He notices it immediately and tells her gently that if it's too much, she can stop now. His tone carries an out he hopes she'll take. Yet Unji, stubborn as always, shakes her head and insists she isn't embarrassed at all. Her voice wavers ever so slightly, but her determination holds firm as she steels herself and continues. However, Jintaek can't help but recall what Unji's mother once told him, that if Unji doesn't use the right title when addressing him, it might confuse other people about the nature of their relationship. The reminder weighs heavily on his mind, and with that lingering unease, he forces himself to draw the evening to a close. He tells Unji in a calm but firm tone that it's getting late, and she must be tired after everything, so she should get some rest, while he himself will step out for a while to clear his head and gather his thoughts before coming back. The following day, inside the company's break room, Jintaek is seen moving through his routine with visible wariness, attempting to make himself a cup of coffee, as if that simple act could steady his restless mind. Yet, as he stands there waiting for the hot water to pour, fragments of last night's encounter replay in his head with such intensity that he feels his chest tighten. He realizes with a heavy sense of dread that he has become a man who cannot entirely control himself, that despite his attempts to draw the line, there was a moment last night where he only barely managed to rein himself in, and the thought terrifies him. Lost in those troubling thoughts, he forgets to shut off the hot water tap, and only when the scalding water splashes against his skin does he snap back to reality, letting out an involuntary scream. Nahyun, hearing the sound, rushes into the break room in alarm and demands to know what happened. Jintaek, flustered, insists it's nothing more than a slight burn, downplaying the situation. Nahyun frowns at his carelessness and quickly instructs him to keep his hand under cold, running water while she fetches the first aid box. When she returns, she insists that it will be faster if she handles the treatment herself, taking his hand despite his attempt to brush it off. As she carefully applies the ointment and bandages, she fixes him with a look that cuts through his deflection. She remarks that he has been distracted lately, so caught up in his own world that even little things seem to slip past him. She reminds him that she had told him before, if he's carrying something heavy on his mind, he doesn't have to keep it to himself, that if things are really that tough, he can at least vent about it, and she'll be there to listen without judgment. Something about her straightforward concern presses against his conscience, and without thinking, he tests the waters with a hypothetical. He asks her quietly, suppose she had known someone for a very long time, someone she trusted deeply, but then she suddenly found out that this person had begun to see her as a woman, as someone to be desired. Yet at the same time, she herself was in a situation where she couldn't possibly return those feelings. When Nahyun presses further and asks him why not, Jintaek hesitates for a moment before replying that it is because the person in question is someone she would inevitably have to keep seeing for a very long time. And once that relationship changes, the risk of not being able to return to how things were before would be too heavy for either of them to bear. Nahyun, thoughtful but not fully convinced, responds by asking him if perhaps the woman also has feelings for the man, suggesting that if it were left to her, the best course of action would first be to take the time to understand her own feelings clearly, because only then would she be able to deal with the situation in a way that is less messy and far more honest. Jintaek, however, deflects the conversation, remarking that it is already late and that he should not keep her any longer, and with a small but weary smile, he thanks her sincerely for her help. Afterwards, Nahyun is left alone in the break room, her mind circling around their discussion. She replays Jintaek's words over and over, trying to piece together what exactly he was implying. A troubling thought crosses her mind. Was he indirectly talking about her in particular? The way he framed the scenario, the way his expression carried an unspoken weight, all of it unsettled her. Yet the idea feels both too close and too distant at the same time, leaving her deeply confused and unable to arrive at a conclusion. Meanwhile, Jintaek drives home in silence, his hands tight around the steering wheel and his gaze unfocused on the road ahead. He reflects on what Nahyun said and realizes that, in truth, looking at the situation from another person's perspective does bring clarity. Her advice about figuring out one's feelings makes undeniable sense, but what unsettles him more is his phone rings. The call is about Unji. Without hesitation, He turns the wheel sharply and accelerates, worry gripping his chest. Soon after, Unji is shown at her campus, sitting quietly on a bench with her left ankle wrapped in fresh bandages. Sola waits in quiet concern as Jintaek arrives, eager to know the severity of Unji's injury. She explains that it is an ankle sprain, thankfully not too serious, yet the timing is unfortunate since the competition preliminaries are approaching quickly. She has already heard from training that while recovery is possible, competing is out of the question. Jintaek feels a measure of relief that the injury is not worse, though disappointment lingers in the air, and when he asks about Unji's whereabouts, Sola informs him that she is likely in the track team locker room. Jintaek makes his way there, and Unji, caught off guard, is surprised to see him appear. Later, the two are seen together in the car as they make their way back. Jintaek's thoughts drift to the effort Unji has poured into her first competition, how tirelessly she has prepared, only for everything to unravel in such a futile manner. He contemplates whether a hospital visit might still be necessary, but Unji insists she is fine and does not require it. Instead of heading straight home, Jintaek steers the car in another direction, and Unji notices the change, realizing they are not taking the usual route. He suggests a diversion, a chance to breathe, and continues to drive until they eventually leave the city streets behind. They are soon walking along a road that opens into a stretch of coastline. Unji, at first uncertain of their destination, gradually begins to understand when the horizon clears and the sea comes into view. She is stunned by the sudden vastness before her, the sight of waves rolling endlessly under the open sky. Jintaek shares that this is the place he turns to whenever his thoughts grow heavy and the world feels overwhelming. A quiet refuge where the clutter in his head begins to settle. He gazes at the endless stretch of sea, the horizon blurring into the sky until there is no line between the two, and in that vastness he feels himself shrink into something infinitely small, yet strangely soothed by the insignificance. The calm that settles in his chest makes him think he can understand why Unji feels weighed down, but he also knows that he has never been good with words or comfort, that every attempt to console others usually turns into something clumsy and sharp-edged. Still, he reasons that perhaps his silence, his simple presence here. Yet Unji lingers, her eyes still drawn toward the waves, and she expresses a wish to see what lies further down the shore. They walk together toward the water's edge, the sand shifting beneath their steps. Concern pulls at him, and he quietly wonders whether the walk is comfortable for her ankle. But she assures him that the ground is soft and forgiving, that the swelling has already lessened, and though there is still some pain, it is not enough to stop her. She even adds with a hint of defiance that she could still run if she wanted to, though the coaches and trainers have strictly forbidden it. Her voice turns more reflective as she admits that the competition is not even a particularly important one, yet the fear of worsening her injury was enough for everyone to hold her back. She knows deep down that they are stopping her not out of doubt, but out of care for her future, preserving what matters in the long run, and she understands it even as the decision had left her frustrated and upset. But standing here now, with the sea stretching wide before her and the weight of the city far behind, she feels some of that heaviness lift away. She acknowledges to herself that this change of scenery, this stolen moment of calm, has eased the tight knot in her chest, and that for the first time since the injury, her mood feels lighter. As they make their way closer to the shoreline, Unji suddenly loses her footing on the damp sand, her balance slipping away beneath her. Jintaek instinctively reaches out and manages to catch her, yet the momentum of her stumble pulls them both forward, sending them tumbling into the shallow waves together. The sudden chill of the seawater shocks their skin, and Unji exclaims at how cold it feels, her laughter mingling with the sound of the surf as they try to steady themselves in the tide. Time passes, and later they are seen in a high-rise building, the top floor of a grand hotel overlooking the city and the sea they had just left behind. Unji retreats to the bathroom where the sound of water echoes softly as she takes a shower to wash off the salt and sand. Jintaek, meanwhile, is on the phone with the hotel staff, learning that it will take at least 2 hours before their clothes are properly dried. When he finishes the call, he lets Unji know that they will need to stay here for a while longer, waiting until the laundry is ready before they can head home. Unji steps out, her expression softened by a rare contentment. She thanks him quietly, admitting that the day has felt almost like an unexpected trip, a brief escape from everything that weighed her down. She explains that if not for him, she would have spent the entire day sunk in frustration and disappointment. But instead, she finds herself grateful for the distraction and the change of pace. With hesitation, but also with a spark of honesty, she adds that she does not want to return home just yet. The thought of the day ending feels premature, and so she asks if they might stay the night there.